All right, you guys, let's go ahead and get started. Gosh, what a weird live show yesterday. We got knocked off of YouTube and it was a hard boot. Like literally knocked off. Did something to my computer, couldn't get back on. Said that I didn't have the credentials to get back in, and they basically ended the stream. We had a huge influx of new people, approaching 1,000 people watching, and that's when it all went down. Now, what you didn't hear was the part that they cut out at the end of that show. So I'm going to share that with you today because I believe that's why we got booted. I think that YouTube thought that we were going to disclose some information that they didn't want disclosed. Well, the part that I was talking about that you did not hear, and you did not even hear in the part two, because remember, we went live again in a part two, was when we were talking about the Ukraine and Obama's involvement, and that there would possibly be some kind of trafficking revelation connected to Obama and the Ukraine. And this would be the perfect card that Trump would pull to deflect off of his current situation, which is what we're going to talk about today. So apparently they didn't want that information disclosed in Ukraine. And remember, iPetco 2, Ukraine is the key. There's something about Ukraine that's going to like blow up or be disclosed very shortly here. This is what I think is going to happen at some point. There are just too many connections in iPetco 2 to Ukraine, many scenes mirroring the Ukraine. And so I believe that this is what will happen at some point. It will be something unthinkable. It will be something that will take the world's focus off of Trump and onto other things. I think that right now they're kind of priming the pump for all this. Now, the weird thing is yesterday's part one live show is starting to go viral. It's up at almost 12,000 views, which is 3 times the amount of views for our normal daily shows. So I don't know how that happened or why that happened. Maybe it was on its way to going viral, and that's why they cut the stream, because they didn't want this information out. They don't want this channel to be mainstream. Now, we're going to get into a bunch of stuff today. There's somebody now claiming to be Epstein's niece, was just interviewed by Sean Atwood. We're going to cover parts of that. Also, more cringy Trump comments and resurfaced photos. Literally within the last 48 hours, Trump just spoke the words 666. We're going to cover that today. And of course, Ghislaine Maxwell is now meeting with the feds to possibly strike a deal to disclose the truth, because now this is what they're telling us needs to happen for us to get to the bottom of the truth. You guys, things are moving at a fever pitch. JFK Jr. found organ harvesting. Yes, you heard me correctly. We're going to cover that today. And finally, more Blacklist clone shapeshifter doppelgangers. And what am I talking about? Well, you'll see. But first, speaking of clones, this is the interview with Sean Atwood. Supposedly, Anya Wick is the niece of Jeffrey Epstein. And you'll understand why I say is supposed to be in a minute, because got to be very careful here. Okay. Now, I don't watch Sean Atwood anymore for various reasons that I won't get into here, but this interview with Epstein's niece is off the chain. I do recommend that you watch it. I'll put a link to it. I've never seen anything like this before. You guys, it confirms a lot of the occult stuff that we've exposed line for line. How the justice system gags the real truth. The real truth never comes out. It's already been filtered. How our court system works. How they gag the truth from coming out. Now, I've experienced this to some point, to some degree, in my own personal life. You know, when you get a divorce and you have custody battles with your ex, the court literally gags you from even explaining to your own children the truth about the situation so that they can grow up and understand that both parents really do love them. And in their mind, they just think one parent abandoned them and they're with one parent, the other parent the whole time. And they literally grow up thinking that you have not helped them financially because you can't talk about that. And that's just a small example of how the truth is covered up in the justice system. They literally gag people from talking about anything, and it's all to keep things secret so that nobody ever knows the real truth about what's really happening. This woman also talks about the cult of Baal. Now, we had just covered the cult of Baal, remember? Remember the Prince decodes that we did on Baal and how Baal is kind of the key to it all? Now, I know a lot of people talk about Baal. This is crazy. She says this is who they worship. And then in the same sentence, she says, all these people are talking about the Illuminati. She goes, but really, Sean, you're the Illuminati. And she calls Sean Atwood the Illuminati, and he doesn't correct her. This is a weird interview, you guys. And she's like, the real Illuminati are the people shining the light on the Baal worshippers. And I'm going, whoa. Then she talks about twinning. Now, we've been on and on about this whole doppelganger twinning clone thing since the beginning. Now, I'm giving you a Cliff Notes version because I'm not going to play his video, but I'll link it. She talks about twinning. Now, what she says here is that the twins, that the elite celebrate twin births. This is what they aspire to. This is what's up with all the IVF. They love this. So when you see a sitting president talk about, oh, IVF, Donald Trump, now you're starting to see the layers peeled back. Now, even if this woman isn't real, she is disclosing a lot of what goes on behind the scenes with these people because she has to tell part of the truth in order to get people to believe her, right? Again, this push for IVF by a sitting president has to do with this whole twinning issue. They want this. Now, what she said about the twins was when they have them, it's a big secret. She says they're basically given fake birth certificates with their ages that are not accurate. They don't have accurate birthdays. They don't have accurate, even years of birth could be separated by 3 or 5 years. She also says, so think about that for a second. The birthdays are off. Uh, Look at all these birthday decodes that we do. We're like, why did they cast this person in this role? And how is it that their birthday's lining up with the very role that they were like destined to carry out? Well, she explains all that. She says that these people are birthed in for specific roles to continue to rule over the rest of us. They're birthed in to be singers and actors. So this fits in exactly with what we were talking about. She says all wars are fake, which is what we said as well. They need to keep the illusion of war going to keep us all under control. You guys, literally everything. It was almost like I was watching an Enter the Stars decode, listening to this woman. Now, what else did she say about twins being separated at birth? Well, she said she has a twin, or I think she said that. I can't remember. But she says that when twins are born, it's kept a secret, and one of them is made famous, and the other one sits back and hones their craft independently, unquote. So the suggestion here is that the two are interchanged at some point. There are a lot of people that believe that Trump may have a twin. He is a Gemini. You guys, I was getting chills watching this. This is everything we've been talking about. The doppelgangers, the twins, the dark twins. Now, I never truly bought into Trump having a twin. I know people have talked about it. I know Jurassic Liars was the one who talked about Elvis being Trump's twin. And I'm not saying I didn't buy into it because I just needed more evidence, I guess is what I'm saying. Well, here's more confirmation. There are two Trumps. Holy smokes. So, and you'll see all this when you see this interview here. And thanks to the subscriber who brought this to my attention in the comment section yesterday. Now, she also explains that some of the theories, the conspiracy theories out there, are untrue or they're versions of the truth. And they're allowed to run rampant to intentionally discredit the truth community. This is why I tell you guys, you got to be careful with absolutes. We can say, oh, maybe, but if we say, like, we know for sure, that can discredit you. She herself talks about, let's call them transformers. And this is where I get into, I'm not sure what this is about here, but she says that because she was born a woman, that she was, of course, abused and all this. And so she felt like she had to turn herself into a man. So she started taking testosterone. And she says that's what saved her life. So she's literally promoting people to transform. Okay. This is where I have a problem with all this because she literally endorses it. She says it saved her life. Now, another component of this is that from a very young age, she was given amnesia drugs anytime there was things that happened to her. So we don't really get solid stories. We get repressed memories. And this is where I start to go, there must have been one time where this happened, or there must be some proof that we can go to. I always get a little concerned. Now, I know that um, giving them these amnesia drugs is a central component of all this, but we need some proof, right? Now, she also says that every single prominent politician who's given any amount of perceived power, they are all compromised. Another tenet of this channel. I told you guys, anyone you see on TV has already been compromised. That's how they control them, Trump included. And she says all these people that are drug into court, they never, ever acted alone. They learned it from somebody. So she talked about Diddy. He learned it from a whole network of people, but he was an outsider. He wasn't born into it. So therefore, he became a fall guy, or so they say, right? He could not even be in jail. Who knows? But anyway, long story short, she says that there's a whole cast of these people working around people like Diddy, showed them exactly how to do it. These memory amnesia drugs, people forget. She even said she was kept on a microdose in between the incidents to continue to disassociate her. What else did she say? Well, she talked about how art and fiction is exactly how they hide the truth. They fictionalize the truth so that nobody believes it. She almost said that word for word, which I've been telling you guys since the beginning. Now, how did I know all this? Well, it's been over a decade of research, and you begin to put the puzzle pieces together when you're closely looking at these people and what they put out in terms of propaganda, predictive programming. You start to learn what they're actually up to. You see them depict things before they happen. Prime example, all of the predicting programming of Trump. Remember the pizza man? Trump ended up being the pizza man. He is the head trafficker in plain sight. She even says that Epstein, her uncle, wasn't even the main guy. He was just a cog in the wheel. Now, it's hard to know if this woman's telling the truth, but she does have a lot of very striking information. And again, I have my concerns. The whole transformer thing, um, basically not being able to recall a single incident where she wasn't under the influence of the amnesia drug, and other things that she says. Now, what would be the end to this? Why would they put a fake person, if she is fake? I'm not saying I know for sure. Why would they do this? Well, sometimes I wonder if they put these people forward for some kind of fishing expedition, a honey trap, for people that are thinking about talking and coming out, for people that don't have a voice. This woman is viral on TikTok. And of course, she's getting interviews with people that I don't 100% trust. And so let's say a victim comes forward who wants to talk and they feel safe. Well, what will happen? Well, they can be quietly silenced, disappeared, and nobody would ever know because they don't have huge TikTok channels and YouTube channels like these people do. If I was a victim, I would not contact this person. I would go to the police. I would try to find someone that I trusted in the police because not all police are trustworthy. And I would go independently because this could be a honey trap. Now, Trump was in the middle of all of this. She doesn't really name him specifically too much, but you can literally tell that he's the one person that she's not talking about. And it's weird. Sean Atwood doesn't really pin her down on Trump. The whole conversation's about Epstein. It's almost as if they made a deal not to talk about Trump or something. He's mentioned like once or twice, but there should have been a whole conversation about New York and how all this went down and, and all this stuff. And there just wasn't. It was noticeably silent. Now, let me check in with you guys. We're going to get into some cringy things that Trump has said. He literally said 666 in some comments from a few nights ago at this thing here. Hold on, let me pull it up here. Oh, listen to this. This is insane.
What does Tiffany have of Marla's?
Well, I think that she's got a lot of moral, and she's really a beautiful baby, and she's got Marla's legs. We don't know whether or not she's got this part yet, but time will tell.
What does Tiffany have of yours, and what does Tiffany have of Marla?
So that was obviously an interview. This is resurfaced. Now, this was addressed back in 2016 during Trump's first presidency, or right before he got reelected or elected, sorry. And the Robin Leach actually defended Trump's comments there and said that people were just on a witch hunt. Well, that was before we had the context of Jeffrey Epstein, right? Imagine your infant baby talking about undeveloped top half. Imagine. Now, you guys, people thought, oh, Casey, you just don't like America. For people to vote for this, there's judgment coming. There is judgment coming. We deserve judgment for this. I mean, talk about a falling away. Talk about excusing sin and ignoring sin. It's happening right in front of our faces, but too many people are so afraid of the Democrats that they've fallen under this strong delusion. Now, there's more. These are some comments Trump made the other day. He's literally gaslighting.
Now live now to the
gaslighting his base now. What is he doing? He literally says 666 months. Let's take a look. Now he knows that we're all Christians. And he knows that a lot of people that voted for him are Christians, and this number's significant. This is something you just don't blow past. Let's play part of this.
And Ronald Reagan tried, everybody tried, everybody tried since Ronald Reagan and before. And John, we got it out, and I know it doesn't sound so nice.
So the context of this, he's speaking to GOP senators at White House dinner. This is from 4 days ago.
When they hear, that's terrible, public broadcast. It sounds so innocent. It's not innocent. It was brutal.
We'll get to that part in a minute here. I know it was at like 12 minutes. Okay, let's take a look here.
It was brutal, very unfair. We achieved more in 6 months than almost any administration could accomplish in 8 years, and we're going to have a lot of good 6 months left. We're going to have a 6 and another 6 and another 6, so we'll keep going. And
play it again.
Administration could accomplish in 8 years, and we're going to have a lot of good 6 months left. We're going to have a 6 and another 6 and another 6, so we'll keep going. And
wow. But still, people will ignore this. They'll ignore it. And that is the judgment. It's ignoring the sin that's right in front of you. It goes all the way back to Samuel. Humans begging the Most High for a human king. God said, if you do this, the king will judge you. And I believe that is what's happening right now. Now, I have not looked at this next story yet, but they're saying newly discovered photos and video shed fresh light on Trump's ties to Epstein. Let's take a look, you guys. I have not seen this yet.
And Andrew, I shared one of them there, but, so let's start with the one at Trump's wedding. I mean, this is, as Baal is here with the new images of Trump and Epstein. And Andrew, I shared one of them there, but, so let's start with the one at Trump's wedding.
Now, forget the source. Okay, obviously this is CNN, but the cat's out of the bag, as they say. Okay. MAGA is finally waking up. But you need to understand the right-left paradigm and how this works. The reason why the truth is now coming out of the left, there's a reason for it. It's chaos magic. Okay? Obviously, the left has all their sin piled on top of this as well, right? With the agendas they were pushing under Biden and before and Obama. But this is insane, you guys. So forget about the messenger. Look at the content, not the messenger.
Wedding. I mean, this is a significant development.
Well, yeah, it is. Trump's wedding to Marla Maples in 1993 was dubbed the wedding of the century by the media at the time. And although we know that Trump and Epstein were friends during this period, this is really the first time that it's actually been reported that Trump invited Epstein to his wedding. This is, we should note, more than a decade before those first allegations of sex trafficking against Epstein. But as you know, Trump's relationship with Epstein has been under the microscope recently. Now, besides that one photo of Epstein entering the reception at the Plaza Hotel, we can also see him in the background of another picture. That's Howard Stern on the far right, along with Robin Leach from Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous. And Epstein is behind them at the wedding, almost seeming to be photobombing them. We also found this photo.
Now, there's Robin Leach. So this is why Robin Leach was defending Trump in his comments about his infant daughter's top half, because Robin Leach was part of it too. There's Howard Stern. He's obviously part of it. He was making all kinds of innuendo comments about Trump's daughter, Ivanka, in the interview.
From just a few months earlier, Donald Trump with two of his children talking to Jeffrey Epstein. That's at the opening of the Harley-Davidson Cafe in New York in October 1993. You can see Ivana there. She would have been just about to turn 12 years old.
And look at poor Ivanka. Biting the nails. Typically a sign that something is not right. I won't make the leap of abuse, but typically these children are, if you're in a high profile family, you're taught not to do these things in public. You're taught some kind of decorum, appearances, right? So if it's still happening, that can indicate that there's something going on.
In that photo.
Yeah, you can see Ivanka right there it looks like between Trump and Epstein. All right, these are never before seen photos, Andrew. I know you also found some video of Trump and Epstein that was from later of them talking that has also never surfaced before. What's that?
Well, that's right. This is from 6 years later in 1999. This video has never been seen before in this context. It shows Trump talking to Jeffrey Epstein just before models hit the runway at the Victoria's Secret fashion show in New York in 1999. You know, the only other video we've seen of the two men was 7 years before this. Trump is at the show with Melania, who is, of course, now First Lady, seated a few feet away from Epstein. You can see them chatting during the show as well. Allegations that Epstein sexually abused underage girls didn't surface until 2005, years after this video was shot.
Right, but this, of course, establishes them together and obviously very friendly in 1999. So, Andrew, when you get all this, and all of this, as I just want to emphasize, right, has not been seen before. So you actually called President Trump. You called him directly to ask him about this.
Yeah, we were not on the phone very long. I think our call is about 30 seconds or so. But when I asked him about the wedding photo, he said, he sort of paused for a second and then said, "You've got to be kidding me," before calling CNN fake news and then hanging up on me. Now, in a statement to CNN, White House Communications Director Stephen Chung said this. He said these are nothing more than out of context frame grabs of innocuous videos and pictures of widely attended events to disgustingly infer something nefarious. The fact is that the president kicked him out of his club for being a, quote, creep.
All right. Well, it is incredible reporting, and it is important.
So obviously, you can't glean too much from what I just showed you, other than that these two men were close. They were friends all the way up till 1999. And what else can we glean from this? Well, that's probably about it. This isn't too shocking of information, nothing more than we've seen already before about their connections to each other. But wow, pretty shocking, right? Now, what else do we have in here? Let's see here. Oh, so then, of course, they're dragging up this. Let's see, let's refresh this. Oh boy, here we go. Okay. This was some remarks that Trump made on, where was this? The Howard Stern show about underage girls. Now, this was all brought out in 2016 before the election, but nobody believed it. I think everybody was so done. They didn't want Hillary Clinton to win. And so they just overlooked all this stuff, you guys. They just overlooked it. Let's read this again. Now, we've all seen this and heard this, but maybe some people haven't. Literally, Trump's on Howard Stern. Now, understand, Howard Stern is an edgy, raw, show host. That's what he's known for. The very fact that you would go on a show like this is weird. I would never be on a show like this. It says, so he says, let's just read from the beginning here. Stephen Chung, Trump's communicators director, torched the Daily Beast for dredging up remarks that Trump made during an interview with Howard Stern in 2006, when he told the radio show host that the best part about being Donald Trump was that he could get all the girls he wanted if he wasn't married to his wife. Now, this is the kind of stuff 24-year-olds talk about. Right? Do you think you could now be banging 24-year-olds? Stern asked. Oh, absolutely. I have no trouble, 60-year-old Trump replied. Would you do it? Pressed Stern, to which Trump said, no problem. But then Trump got into a questionable back and forth with the show's co-host. Do you have an age limit? No, I have no age. And then he paused and he started to backtrack. I mean, I have an age. I don't want to be like Congressman Foley with, 12-year-olds. Trump was referring to former Representative Mark Foley, who had resigned that year for sending explicit messages to underage boys. One of Foley's victims was 16 at the time. Trump's aversion to the ousted lawmaker was apparently temporary, however. the Florida Republican was spotted sitting in a reserved section directly behind Trump at the 2016 campaign rally. And of course, Trump's team is deflecting. They don't want this to catch fire, but people are already waking up. It's too late. Now, to what end? I don't know. Let me get your guys' feelings about all this before we move into the last parts of the show. Wow. Now, we were exposing a lot of this stuff back during Trump's first presidency, and the first thing people think is, oh, you must be a liberal. No, this is not about liberal or conservative. This is about the truth. This is about the truth. Trump says he has nothing to be repentant of. Nothing. Well, I think these things would count as things that people should repent of. So, Casey, what's the alternative? Should we have voted for Hillary? No. The no vote movement. We send a message. We tell them we don't trust any of their kings, and we want our king, Jesus Christ, to return. It is the Lord's Prayer. Let your kingdom come and your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Now, organ trafficking. Now, a lot of people have been talking about this. They're literally pulling people's organs out, and they're not even dead yet. Now, the very definition of organ harvesting is the fresher, the better, right? And so, but you wouldn't expect a person to actually be alive before you take the organs out. That's insane. But yet, RFK, they're saying here that they've discovered through some research that people's organs were being harvested before they're even dead. RFK Jr. orders changes for organ donation network as report finds dozens were not dead when harvested. They're literally, I mean, you guys, this is right out of what is it when they steal cars and they pull the parts off of them? This is what this reminds me of. Mid reports that organ donors may be at risk for having their body parts harvested while still alive and kicking. Trump administration has launched a sweeping reformation of the U.S. organ transplant system. Now, to me, this is Trump throwing bones out to his base, trying to take, I mean, obviously this is a problem, but why are they disclosing this now? It's almost like they're confirming a lot of the other conspiracy theories to throw a bone to his base so that they shut up about Epstein. This is how this comes across to me. Because if they knew this was going on, why now are they talking about it? Unbelievable. Now, here's some more troubling information. Apparently, Ghislaine Maxwell is meeting with the Deputy Attorney General. She's trying to strike a deal. Let's listen to this.
Now planning to interview Ghislaine Maxwell following outrage from some MAGA supporters over the Jeffrey Epstein investigation. Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche, President Trump's former personal attorney, says he anticipates meeting with Maxwell in the coming days. The president speaking on the matter earlier while meeting with the president of the Philippines, saying he had not heard about the plans, but that it sounded like, quote, an appropriate thing to do.
My gosh, look at all that gold. Oh, wow.
And he had not heard about the plans, but that it sounded like, quote, an appropriate thing to do.
Do you have any concern that your Deputy Attorney General, as your former attorney, would be conducting the interview, given...
No, I have no concern. He's a very talented person. He's very smart. I didn't know that they were going to do it. I don't really follow that.
Now, if what Trump really wants to do here is he wants to pardon Ghislaine Maxwell, but he knows that if he did that, it would literally sink him. So they've got to come up with a rope-a-dope, don't they? They have to pretend like they're not pardoning her, strike a plea deal, and then we're going to get a big nothing sandwich. They're probably going to throw a couple more people under the bus. They'll pretend like they've investigated this further, and they'll just throw a couple more people attached to the case under the bus, but still the real people won't go to jail. That's probably what they're working on now. Ghislaine Maxwell will probably get out of prison. We all knew, even if I don't even think she's in prison, but they have to make it so that she can walk around freely, right? So this is what I think they're working on now. Trump, we already know how he feels about Ghislaine because once she got arrested, he said, quote, "I wish her well," almost inferring that she was unjustly put in prison. Let's keep watching here.
Not too much. It's sort of a witch hunt, just a continuation of the witch hunt.
Despite the president's witch hunt claims, some Republicans on Capitol Hill have voted to subpoena Maxwell. To discuss, let's bring in ABC's Perry Russum. He is at our D.C. bureau, and ABC's Jay O'Brien on Capitol Hill. Thank you both for joining me. Perry, I want to start with you. What else is the administration saying about this?
So why is all of a sudden the left covering everything that the right was screaming from the rooftops about during the whole Biden presidency when they could have been talking about this during the Biden presidency? You see you see what happens here? They just keep flipping the truth back and forth to each side.
Planned meeting with Maxwell, and what is Maxwell's attorney saying, if we know?
Yeah, the DOJ says this meeting could be happening in the next few days, in the coming days. So we're talking about a pretty short window of us finding out about this to this meeting possibly happening. As you mentioned, the Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche, who was Trump's former personal attorney representing him in a number of cases leading up to the 2024 election. He is the one that should be meeting with Maxwell. He says if Ghislaine has any information that is relevant to the DOJ or FBI, they want to hear from her. And it appears that Maxwell's attorney is open to this idea, saying today that they are in discussions with the government. He says, quote, Ghislaine will always testify truthfully. And this is a woman that a lot of people want to hear from. We heard from Epstein's former attorney over the weekend on Fox News, calling Ghislaine the Rosetta Stone of information, saying basically she knows everything. And it appears some members of Congress also want to hear from her.
And of course, the judge overseeing the grand jury records saying that he will rule expeditiously, but needs.
So this is just a big nothing sandwich, just like with the MLK files that got released. They found nothing, no additional information. It's just a distraction. Now, even Ron DeSantis. Now, again, remember, the people that are asking for the release of the files, many of them are guilty, okay? They're just saying this so that they can appear on the right side of history. Governor Ron DeSantis, of course, this is the epicenter of where all this happened. Now, he wasn't governor at the time when all this went down, but needless to say, this happened in his home state. So you can imagine the pressure from former governors of Florida and all the people involved. They wouldn't let Ron DeSantis get up and say, oh, because they're the ones that helped cover all this stuff up. So this is all just a big shell game. All the pawns are positioning themselves to be on the right side of all this, hoping that they themselves don't get thrown under the bus, hoping that their stuff gets redacted. And then when we get it on the other end, there's not going to be much meat left on the bone, is what I believe is going to happen. Now, this is crazy. Here's an update on Trump's Golden Dome. This is important because he's flushed the toilet on Musk's SpaceX, because that was supposed to be a central component of the Golden Dome. And now Trump's looking for other people to build his Golden Dome. Trump administration is expanding its search for partners to build the Golden Dome missile defense system, courting Amazon's Project Kuiper and big defense contractors as tensions with Elon Musk threaten SpaceX's dominance in the program. The shift marks a strategic pivot away from reliance on Musk's SpaceX and Starlink because of this deteriorating relationship. So that'll be interesting to say the least. Now, of course, we had a couple deaths. I don't cover those too much anymore. Malcolm Jamal Warner from the Cosbys and Ozzy Osbourne, of course, of note, just weeks after he did his final tribute, I guess. Did he even perform, or I don't know. But anyway, that was weird. And then Malcolm Jamal Warner drowned, apparently out in the Caribbean or somewhere. So, interesting, huh? All right, I'm back in the chat, you guys. Let's pull up this Blacklist episode. You're definitely going to get more of a complete sense of these decodes by watching it. I wouldn't not recommend the series. It's actually a really good series in terms of disclosure, but be careful because it's very easy to think that these people are on our side, right? Because of just the level of disclosure. It makes you want to think that David Spader is like, oh, he's on our side. That is not the truth, you guys. This stuff is being disclosed for a reason. These people are dark, they're evil, there's some kind of spiritual sorcery going on. And so they're required by some kind of spiritual law to disclose. Now, I'm interrupting myself because this comes full circle back to the beginning of today's show, in which Jeffrey Epstein's niece literally says that they fictionalize the truth so that it's not believable. So this confirms what we've been saying. Let's keep watching. These things to us. Very, very few people are actually even picking up on it. Most people watch these series and they're programmed by the series to turn against God in some way, shape, or form. But let's go ahead and get started on Blacklist. Watch this.
Short of George Sanders, I can think of no one I'd rather have pretend to be me.
But you killed him. You manufactured a doppelganger to reclaim your reputation.
I have many contingency plans in place.
So there you heard Reddington describe a doppelganger. Now, what was that all about? Well, that was in the 3rd season. And Reddington had hired a doppelganger, basically a twin, to take his place, to pretend to be him. Now, why did he do this? Well, he did it to cause confusion and also to expose the cabal. It was one of his chess moves. Now, most of you will remember the research we've done on doppelgangers over the past couple of years. The first 6 generations of man in the Bible, in both Cain's line and Seth's line, as you can see on your screen here, were doppelganger twins with almost identical names across both bloodlines. Now, this is vitally important to the very foundational principles of the Bible, because since the beginning of time, something happened. Now, we're still trying to figure this out, what it means, why were the first 6 generations repeated? But if you have 6 and 6, that's 66, right? And to me, this is one of the most fascinating aspects of the Bible, one of the great mysteries that we're still trying to pull apart. So, Casey, what are you talking about? What do you mean that first 6 generations of man were twins? Well, Cain killed Abel, and Seth was born. Adam had Seth. For those doubters out there about the 2 separate bloodlines, understand that Cain is not mentioned in the bloodline of Adam. He's not there. In fact, Adam's bloodline is recited in the Bible, name for name, without Cain mentioned. It's as if Cain is not Adam's son. Otherwise, he would be listed in Adam's lineage. Now, you can go back to Genesis and see all this for yourself. But a lot of people are still in denial. They believe that Cain came from Adam. And if he did come from Adam, he would be listed in Adam's bloodline. But he is not. And those are facts. Now, how you reconcile that in your mind, that's up to you. And that's what we're trying to get down to the bottom of. But when I say that there were twins in the Bible, doppelgangers of one another, you can see it clearly here if you take a second to look at the 2 bloodlines. You have Cain and Canaan. You have Enoch and Enoch. There were 2 Enochs. One in, let me get this right, one in Cain's line and one in Adam's line. Irad matches up with Jared. Irad, Jared. They're essentially the same name. Mahujael matches up with Mahalalel. And Methusael matches up with Methuselah. And then there are 2 Lamechs as well, a Lamech in each bloodline. So there are 6 and 6, the 66. And I think that this is what all this boils down to. This is what the number 66 actually means. It's the enemy trying to twin us back, to graft us back in with the devil bloodline. For some reason, once these bloodlines split apart, they mirrored each other on some kind of level. I'm not sure what yet. It could be spiritual, it could be genetic, but they were mirrored. Now, God put a curse upon Cain, but also told people if they killed him, they would be cursed. And I think it was 777 or something like that. I'll have to look back in my Bible. But it makes you wonder, these first 7 generations, right? Does that link up with the curse? Now I'm interrupting myself from this re-upload of Blacklist. Here we are back in 2025. Because one thing I don't know if I mentioned yet in this decode was that this whole period in history was during the Gemini age of Earth. What are you talking about, Casey? Well, the birth of man, the very first 2,160 years of Adam and Eve, occurred in the Gemini being prominent on the horizon. And through precession, every 2,160 years, a new constellation is prominent on the horizon at the rising sun or the setting sun. They call this precession. In other words, the sky moves. It's like a clock. Every 2,160 years, a new constellation moves into this place. And the first 2,160 years of man was the Gemini, which covers this time period in which there were Gemini doppelgangers. The 2,160 years after this, in order, I believe was either Taurus or I always forget the order. But in other words, what's happening in the sky is reflected on what happened in the Bible. Sacrifice of lambs and rams happened during the Taurus age. And then the rise of the worship of bulls. Wait, did I get that backwards? Aries. I'm sorry. I'm confused. But if you look back, you'll see it. It all matches up. The Egyptians' worship of the bull happened during that age, and so on and so forth. Jesus was born. That was the Pisces age, which of course were the two fish that he used to feed the crowd. Also, Jesus' symbol is a fish. It was all about water themes and baptism, water into wine, and all these things. And then that brings us to Aquarius, which is where we're at now, which is the spirit. And I believe the return of Christ will be very, very soon. Let's keep listening here, see if I explain this. I don't know, but there's something to this. Now let's keep watching this, because in a different episode, Reddington mentions shapeshifters, people that project one aspect of their personality, but then they commit the most horrific acts behind closed doors. Watch.
When I was young, I loved fairy tales. I was always partial to shapeshifters.
Now, what he's talking about in this episode is they're tracking a woman, and she basically takes in mentally challenged children and forms like a cult. And then she gets these children to kidnap for her and do all kinds of horrific acts.
Always partial to shapeshifters who seemed good and sweet, but they were full of unimaginable darkness. Once upon a time, there lived a woman in the woods. She was neither purely evil nor purely good. She gathered unwanted children.
Now, then we fast forward to the series to season 4. And this brings us to 2016 in the timeline. Of course, this was long before COVID. This was the year Trump was elected president. And in this episode, this guy right here is Elizabeth Keene's father. She finds out. And he's Russian. She's Russian. What do they do to this guy? Well, watch and listen.
And if I don't, I'll be indicted. Justice Department will freeze all your American assets. Billions of dollars. Your most prized asset in the U.S. will be lost.
Short of George Sanders,
So obviously they froze Russian assets. Now, that had not happened in our timeline until like last year or maybe the year before when they started doing this. And yet there it was in a 2016 episode with this Russian guy having his assets frozen. So that gets us caught up on Blacklist so far. I'm into season 4, as I said. And well, here's what I've noticed about the series, and you might notice this too, is that most of the symbolism seemed to have happened in the first season. Okay, so I'll put a link to that. Now let's finish up the show today and get this right about the order of this. This is, of course, the Zodiac. Now, I am not into astrology. I don't live my life by charts and make choices about my life based on this stuff. This is simply God made the heavens, and he literally names some of the constellations in the book of Job. Arcturus is named, the Pleiades are named, the Mazzaroth is named, Orion is named, And God controls the stars. He says in Job, who can loose the belts of Orion? Who can bind the stars of the Pleiades? The things in heaven are put there as a sign to show us that God is real. He created all of it. Scientists have now looked at the Pleiades and Orion, and literally, the words that God spoke in the Bible are manifesting in the sky. Because we have more accurate and detailed equipment, they can sit and stare at the Pleiades and stare at the belt of Orion and extrapolate the minute movements. And in fact, the belt of Orion is loosening. The stars are moving apart. Nobody could know this unless you were watching these stars for 1,000 years to see the minute movements. And in fact, the Pleiades are moving together toward each other. Exactly what God said in the oldest book of the Bible. If that doesn't prove that the Bible is real, I don't know what does. But back to this. Well, this is a poor picture, but Earth's history started in Gemini. As you can see here. Gosh, why can't I get a better picture of this? It's so blurry. Let's try it. Jeez. Okay. I want to show you guys the names. Okay, here we go. All right, let's take a look here. Earth's history started in Gemini. This is Adam and Eve, 2,160 years, and Gemini was prominent on the horizon. We know this because we can extrapolate backwards. The next 2,160 years was Taurus. That is the bull. This is when the ancient Egyptians in the Bible were worshiping the golden calf and the bull. Then we had Aries. This is the lamb, the ram. This was during the Exodus, the 2,160 years when the Hebrews escaped from Egypt. They made a covenant with God where they sacrificed lambs and rams for their sins. The next 2,160 years was Pisces. This is when Jesus was born. Let's do this. Open image. Here we go. Let's try this. This is better. Pisces, the two fish, was when Jesus fed the crowds with two fish. And now here we are, right here. The dawning of the age of Aquarius. And this is not a water sign. It's spirit. Now, before Jesus died, I want you to listen carefully. The disciples asked him, where do we go to prepare for the Passover? And Jesus told them, go into the upper room and find the man bearing the water jug, which just so happens to be the image of Aquarius. What was Jesus really saying? He was saying the final Passover into the Spirit will be at his second coming, where we pass over. Wow. Now, I don't know about these other Earth ages. Cancer obviously predated Gemini. I'm not a believer, really. I don't see proof of other Earth ages before ours. And I don't know about Capricorn and this whole other side of the zodiac. But this is pretty interesting, isn't it? So let me go back into the chat, get your guys' thoughts. Again, I do not believe in astrology and living your life by the stars. That's forbidden in the Bible. We're supposed to live our life by God in the Holy Spirit and pray for direction in our life. And there's no precedent that God's holy people in the Bible used the stars to, live their life by. That's not in the Bible. Because if it was, then we'd believe in it, right? If the prophets were looking in the stars and going, oh, look, this is the such and such sign, and da 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 da, then we would believe it, but we don't, and they don't, and didn't. So look at what they do. So the show's under attack again. This is how they discourage people. This happens every single day, and it'll stay stuck there for a while. Just so you know, you're in the right place and we're over the target. I don't know how they do that, but they do it almost every single show, especially these more powerful shows. Nobody else is connecting. And so don't let that scare you away, because this is what they do to us every day, no matter what we're talking about. So the channel never grows beyond that point. It just gets stuck there for the last 5 years. And there's another clue, because someone is going live every single day. The channel should either grow or stop growing and drop off, right? But it never does. There's been a limiter placed on the channel. That's how it works. All right, I'm back in the chat, you guys. Yes, we are going, and it says in the Bible that flesh won't be in heaven. We will be in the spirit. So there you go. All right. Yeah, I don't like to argue about the rapture on this channel. My standpoint is I am ready, whether I have to suffer a tribulation or not, and all of you should be ready too. My other viewpoint is there were much more faithful people in the Bible who followed God's laws, who were martyred, who died, and who didn't get raptured. So in terms of spiritual legacy, I don't like to bank on being freed from any kind of persecution, because what happens when that doesn't happen and all of a sudden we have to go through hard times waiting for Jesus' return? Well, a lot of people are going to lose faith. They're going to be like, God, you promised us a rapture. You promised to free us from a tribulation and hard times. Well, you guys, we're already in hard times. There are Christians being killed right now that aren't getting raptured. So that's my feeling on it, but I don't like to argue about it because it's a really touchy subject. People, if they say, oh, if you don't believe in a rapture, then I'm not going to follow you. Well, I didn't say I don't believe in a rapture. I said I'm prepared regardless. We shouldn't be really worried about what we're going to have to go through, because on the other side is eternity. And that's all that matters. Whatever temporary pain we're going to have to go through here is temporary. We do know the Revelation says the saints will be beheaded. So how are they not going to get raptured? And they're the saints, right? So yeah, a lot of people are going through it, you guys. Because we live in America, we have the luxury of not being persecuted for the most part as Christians. But we have a false sense of security here. There are Christians getting persecuted all over the world right now. So a lot of these places where they're like war-torn countries and things, these Christians are getting chased down, tracked down, persecuted already. We just don't hear about it. Or it's under the guise of something else. So, yep, we should be prepared regardless. And wouldn't that make our Lord proud? We said, you know what, God, whatever the devil throws at us, we don't care. We're ready. So those are my feelings on that. The people that argue about it, it's more division in the church. Okay. Thanks for the question though. It's weird that that question always seems to come up, always. And I just wonder sometimes if it's organic. because it turns a lot of people off. Now, I encourage you to go back and look at that timeline that I just showed you about the Zodiac, okay? And read the Bible, and you'll see the overlays. Okay, you'll see the golden calf, lining up with Taurus. You'll see the ram and lamb, and I just recommend that you do a word search. Just go to Bible Gateway or Bible Hub and do a word search for uh, calf or cow, and then do one for lamb or ram. And then as you're doing that word search, pull up a biblical history timeline, okay? And it will line up. And you could literally draw the lines and show the different earth ages and see the correlations to each of the animals. You could even type in fish, and then you'll see Jesus' ministry and all the time that fish were mentioned in that 2,160 year period. It's shocking. It's shocking that is the case, but it is. You see, the truth is always somewhere in the middle. The enemy divides by saying this or that, but actually it's a little bit of this and a little bit of that. There are many biblical passages that talk about the glory of the heavens and signs and wonders and things like this in the heavens. And then we've got the naming of the constellations by the Lord himself. So when you begin to piece together the puzzle pieces, it's a timeline. It's a clock telling us when Jesus is going to return. So, all right, you guys. Well, I guess I'm going to pop off here. I love each and every one of you, and I'll likely see you tomorrow. Much love, everybody. Take care.